Hello everyone, welcome to Quant Masters. I'm Harshita Alveli. Today we have Praveeth with us, who is from Kochi, Kerala, and he got placed in Deloitte recently. He's here to share his experience with us. So let's get started. Let's talk to him and get to know about the entire interview process in detail. Hi Praveeth.
Hey ma'am.
How are you?
Yes ma'am, doing good. How are you?
I'm good too. And firstly, we would like to congratulate you for getting placed in Deloitte, Praveeth. We are very happy for you.
Thank you ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, so yeah, could you tell more about yourself, Praveeth?
Yeah, definitely ma'am. So I'm really glad to share my experience with all of us, and all the students would be looking forward to such an experience as well. So I'm sure, like as ma'am said, I'm a student from Kerala, and I'm currently doing my MBA from Christ University, Bangalore, and I'm an MBA student right now, specialized in finance. So uh, so as ma'am said, I'm here to share my placement experience, and which has been really good and enriching because of one reason, that is Quant Masters. And so yeah, so that's the basic thing which I'll be sharing here today, and the in-depth factors of what all which really helped me to crack this interview, and from A to Z of the entire process. So
Okay, super.
yeah.
So you're placed in Deloitte, right? What's the job role and the package, Praveeth?
Yes, ma'am. The job role which I'm into is the tax consultant, the US tax consultant, and the package for this role is 7.6 lakh.
Okay, super. So was this an on-campus or an off-campus interview, Praveeth?
This was an on-campus interview, ma'am.
On-campus interview. So yeah, could you tell everything about it in detail, Praveeth? How many rounds were there in total?
Yes. So this process started with, I'll tell you specifically with regard to my role first, and how different it was for several other job roles of the same company which came to our college.
That would be great. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So for this particular role, we had a presentation first, which involved like giving us an idea about what each of the rounds would be and what the entire process would be before even the shortlist even took place. So this started with a version test. So a version test was the first round, and before I move forward, all the coming rounds, which was like an elimination process. So it's not that all the candidates would be going through the final round and then the candidates would be chosen. It's like the candidates were
Every round was an
eliminated
elimination round. Was the
Yes,
version test also an elimination round?
Yes, ma'am. From the beginning to end, it was.
Sorry?
From the starting to end, it was an elimination round.
Okay, even the version test was an elimination.
Yeah,
so the first round was version test, right?
Yes, ma'am. The first was version test.
Okay, could you tell about it in detail, Praveeth?
Yeah, ma'am. So the version test started with, so the first test, the first pattern of this process was the version test. And if we pass this version test, we instantly get to write the aptitude test. So
okay, immediately, the very next moment.
Yeah, the next moment we get to write the aptitude test if we pass the version.
Okay.
So yeah, so the version test, there is usually a common pattern for this version test, which involves reading, the repeating session, simple questions, sentence build, and story retelling. So these are the 5 sessions which usually come for a version test. And
so basically, they'll be checking your speaking, listening skills,
yes,
right?
Yes.
In every session,
Yes,
they'll be checking a different skill. So that's what happens with version test. Okay.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. And so for this, like how I prepared for this was, there are a lot of sample videos for this in YouTube and the version website, which generally gives us a pattern of what the test would be, and it boosts us confidence just before we go for this kind of round. Okay. And yeah, and one tip which I would like to give in terms of this is, like, when we prepare for these rounds, we usually go through a lot of videos in YouTube and a lot of sources which we get from the web. So for example, one of the rounds in this is story retelling round. Okay. So they usually they usually tell a story for 30 seconds. And what we have to do is, we'll have to just repeat the story in our own words. And the key for this is, we have to make sure that the key elements of the stories are there when we just say it. For example, the name of the person, or what they did, or what a particular date, if they said any. So all such kind of key detail is what matters in this round in specific. So this round is something which I felt was a bit, in case if we want to mess up, this is a round which I felt we may mess up, because we may not remember the story, or it can be any chances of that.
Right.
So the tip which I want to give is, like, when we prepare for this, we have to go through a lot of videos and all that, so that we are, we just have idea of what we've learned and what are our fluency in terms of story and the memory and all that is. And in case if we are lucky, there is chances that, we might come across the same story that we heard during our practice sessions. And all.
Okay. So there is a chance that the story might repeat.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great.
So in case if the story repeats, then it's like a bonus for us because we already know the story and we can ease up in that case.
Okay.
So that was something which I felt was a bonus for me. And so for this was basically the first round of Versant. We usually get a lot of practice stuff for this Versant and YouTube and all that. So that was the first round. And the next round was the Aptitude. So for this particular role, the Aptitude pattern was a bit different rather than what the usual Aptitude pattern is. So we had 3 sessions, but the 3 sessions were financial accounting, logical reasoning, and Excel. So for usually we have Quant, logical reasoning, and verbal, right? So this was the difference in both these things. So for this test, totally we had 75 questions.
Okay.
Out of which 30 questions for finance questions, 30 questions for logical, and 15 questions for Excel. Okay. All these were MCQ questions itself.
Okay. And what time was given to answer these questions?
Ma'am, the total time limit was 75 minutes, ma'am. 75 questions, 75 minutes.
And 75 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. And it was like we can go through, for example, the first section was finance. So that means we can scroll down and see what 30 questions of finance are. It's not like...
And you can come back to the first question again.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
You can navigate between the questions.
Yes,
there was no restriction. Okay.
Yeah, ma'am. So that was one thing. And for this finance part, they usually test our basics and conceptual parts of finance. Out of the 30 questions, maybe 2 to 3 questions might be regarding the calculation part. Okay. For which we'll have to do the calculation. All the questions were regarding theory and concepts of accounting and finance. And for this part, it was thoroughly based from the 11th and 12th accountings and all those concepts.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And for the logical reasoning part, the topics which came were out of the 30 questions, majority of the questions I could remember is syllogism.
Questions.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. For syllogism, there were plenty of questions. Similarly, there were questions for seating arrangement. Seating arrangement question was like they give one paragraph based on which 5 sub-questions will be asked.
Okay.
That was the seating arrangement part. Then there was the blood relation questions. Then I think coding, decoding was there. Then data sufficiency was there.
Basically, they covered all the topics from logical.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Yeah, ma'am. For logical
and how difficult were those questions, Praveeth? Were they easy or more?
Ma'am, I think I had practiced a lot of questions in the Quantmasters website, especially for the.
Found it easy.
Yeah, I was able to really. The reason being syllogism were the question that came the most for this test, and I was really able to confidently do and get the answer for these within the given time. So I felt it was fine.
Okay.
And then there was data sufficiency questions.
Okay.
But these data sufficiency questions were regarding the numericals. So for that is something which I had to spend a bit more time on.
Okay. And, so those data sufficiency questions did not involve anything like blood relations or any time in the syllogisms part, and you had time over here.
Yeah, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. Then
yes,
what else?
Then I think there was a pattern questions where they give the pattern and we have to identify what the next pattern is.
Okay.
Then there was synonyms, antonyms.
So that comes under verbal reason. Verbal, right?
It comes under verbal, but there were just 1-2 questions regarding synonyms and antonyms.
Okay. So those were also included under logical only.
Maybe just 1 or 2, ma'am. It wasn't much.
1 or 2. And even quant was covered under data sufficiency.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. In a way, they covered it as well.
Fine. So and then the next section was Excel, right?
Yes, ma'am. Excel was 15 questions. So for Excel, they asked questions regarding the shortcuts, the functions, what the syntax is, and what the output will be. So for example, they would be giving us a particular syntax of a function.
Okay.
And they would be asking if the syntax or the way in which it is shown is right.
Okay.
Similarly, they might be giving us a function and they might be asking us what the output of this particular function would be.
Okay. So it was all simple. You could answer easily.
Yeah, ma'am. For Excel, some questions where I didn't know some questions because Excel is really vast, and sometimes we get
correct. We
forget.
do not know everything about the Excel, right? So majority part you could answer.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. So for Excel, like basically, there are sources in the web which gives a basic idea of what Excel questions are usually asked in an MCQ test and all that. So with the basics of that, I was able to manage some things, but for some questions, I felt it needed a bit more rather than these the basic sources from the web. Like it needed more of a daily application so that we know what the formula or a particular function of a particular function is.
Oh, okay, fine. So when did the first round happen, Praveeth?
Ma'am, this happened during the first week of November, ma'am.
First week of November, the first round happened. First, the
Yes,
version test happened, then followed by
the written test. Ma'am.
Okay, so when did you get to know that you are shortlisted for the next round?
Ma'am, the results for these came like maybe 3 to 4 days after this first round was over.
Okay, so when was the next round conducted?
Just when the results came after 3 to 4 days, it was said that the interviews will be conducted the next day.
The very next day. Okay, so just after some 4 to 5 days, the next round was also conducted.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
And what was the next round?
The next round was the HR round, technical round, and final interview. So
it was all together?
Even this was an elimination thing, ma'am. So starting with HR round.
Okay. HR round in the sense that's an HR interview, right?
Yes, ma'am, HR interview.
So, and the technical interview?
Ma'am, so how this was like, if we pass the HR round, we get to qualify for the technical round. And once we qualify,
okay, fine. Continue. Please tell about every round in detail, Praveeth.
Yes, ma'am. So the HR round, it was like around 10 to 12 minutes, ma'am. All the rounds, in fact, were 10 to 12 minutes, except for the final round, it was around 15 to 20 minutes. Okay. So for the HR round, they asked the basic and general HR questions, which was covered by Dinesh sir, who taught us the HR and the entire perspective of HR and all that. Okay. So they asked us to basically, the first thing which they asked, like usual, was to introduce ourselves. And based on what we say, they asked further questions. Okay. So they asked, like, why do you want to be in Deloitte, or what motivates you to be in a company like this? Okay. That was one of the questions. Then they asked,
what was done the basic research work?
Yes, ma'am. So
okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. So I'll mention a few questions which they asked, like in the first place.
Yeah, please.
This was the first question. Then they asked what was the major challenges that we faced in the recent times, and maybe what do we have any leadership qualities, and what is the leadership qualities that you feel a leader must have in any scenario. Okay. So those were some of the general stuff which they asked. So for this, as to why introduce yourself, it's obvious that it'll be good if we have a pre-made script ready, like what we usually have to say, or the key points which show us who we are.
Correct.
And that was one thing which I already prepared for. Then even the why Deloitte part. So once we say what we are, we have to relate it with what the company is and how we can go in hand in hand. So that was a way in which I thought to answer the why Deloitte question. Then the major challenges. So that depends from person to person. So these questions, so these things, it'd be better if we just see across all these scenarios, like just before the interview or like a day before the interview, to know what we'll have to say, or just to make sure that we have in case if they ask anything. So these were some of the ways in which I prepared for the HR interview round. And like definitely with the HR training which I had gone through the Quant Masters, like I was able to know what not to say at the same time, like what the HR would be expecting, or what if I say something, will the HR feel that this is a cliche answer? Like I had a basic idea of what all these things are, like once the training here was done. So that further helped me to give a better image of what I actually am, rather than just saying something which shows that I'm a fit candidate for this.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. So that was the HR round. So once the HR round was over, just after a few hours, the qualified candidates for the next round would be informed to log into the next round, technical interview. So for this technical round, it was same like around 10 to 12 minutes.
Okay.
So 10 to 12 minutes. So for this, when we got in for the interview, like they didn't ask much. They just went straight to the technical stuff. So
Okay.
so the role for this was tax consultant, and the prerequisites and all those kinds of things for this role was financial basics and accounting knowledge.
Okay.
And they tested the base. What I understood was they usually ask basic questions, but
Okay.
basic questions and the answer which we give must be having a reasoning for why it is like that.
Correct.
For example, for example, they might be asking in terms of finance, they might be asking where one particular item might be coming in balance sheet. So if we say where it is coming, they would be asking why it is coming there. So we also have to know the reasoning for the answer which we are giving.
Okay.
So I felt that the technical questions they asked were somewhat okay, considering that we have the right reasoning for it.
Fine.
And so these were the questions they asked regarding finance. And
So
regarding
it was
Excel
like
also,
simple itself, right? You could answer.
ma'am, the questions were basic questions, but they expect us to know the reasoning behind all those basic
Okay.
questions.
So that's the tricky part. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And the application of it. So that was the finance part. And they also just, asked maybe just one question regarding the Excel part. So they asked me, like, instead of asking for me, the question they asked was regarding macros in Excel.
Okay.
So instead of asking me what this kind of thing is in Excel, they asked me like, have you used any of these things? Do you know what the application of this is?
Okay.
So for this part, being a finance student, Excel is something which you have to use in our daily curriculum and all that.
Yeah.
So I told them for what purpose I had used this for. Even though I was a beginner in the macro part, I told them the basic usage which I had come across in my projects and all that. So basically what I understood, what they just wanted to know if you are familiar with the application of the things. It's like, even though you're not a pro or something in it, you just have to know the application of it in a simple sense.
Yeah.
And so that was the technical round. So they asked few questions like this, and the interview panel was also chill. It was like just a one person was there for the interview. And it was much more like a casual conversation.
Okay.
So it was helping as well.
So then when was the next round and what was it?
Yes, ma'am. So the round after this was the final round. So just like this, the qualified candidates move on to the next final round.
Okay. So what was the final round? It was another interview?
Yes, ma'am. So final round also was an interview. So in this, they told us they would ask you anything, like ranging from the technical stuff to your HR questions to
anything could be asked here.
Yes, ma'am. Anything like based on the see, as MBA student,
how many of you all were shortlisted for this final round?
I'm not quite sure about the final candidates, but for the interviews, totally 24 students were there.
Okay, fine. Yeah, please continue. Tell us about the final. This is the final round, right?
Yes, ma'am. This is the final round.
Okay, yeah. Tell us about it.
So, yes, ma'am. So for this final round, they could ask anything ranging from the HR to technical to whatever they want from our resume as well. So, as I was saying, one of the major things which we show in our resume, being an MBA student, is this projects that we've done. And especially the summer internship projects is something which we show of utmost importance in the resume. So what they asked was, first things first, the introduction part. Even they introduced themselves, and then they started asking, so what was your summer internship, and like why did you prefer such kind of an area? So now that you did in such kind of an area, don't you think that there is the job role which you did and the projects which you did are in two different areas? So if they are asking in such a way, like we have to have our own reasoning as to why do we think we can, go on well. So these were the questions which were asked to me. So it needn't be like these are the questions that may be asking to everyone. So it can
be something different. Yeah.
It can be different depending on what they see in your resume and all that. So this was the beginning stuff which they asked to me. And from these, they asked again the technical stuff regarding the job role, which like it was like a continuation of the technical round. So it was a new set of technical questions regarding finance. So that was one set of questions which they asked. Then they asked questions regarding our project which we did. So the projects which we did, they asked us like what we did, and they also further asked why, or maybe they asked particular terms in it, the technical stuff again regarding the projects. So that was one more thing. Then what they asked was, so these were the two crucial things. Then they asked regarding the job and the job timings, as to this job requires us to work for this many hours. Maybe sometimes the work hours may exceed more than the set time. So do you think like you will be able to, you have previous experience doing this, or what makes us feel that you would be a person who's a perfect fit for this? So in those situations, I felt that we just have to give in our experiences, like whatever we have, and all those situations where we had to work in and given our extra effort and extra time for like whatever project it was. So like whatever experiences that I've been through, giving an extra efforts and extra time, I gave it to them. And I felt that they were quite satisfied with it. And these were the core of, or if I say it was a framework around which the final interview went on.
Okay, so this lasted for around 15 to 20 minutes, right? You told.
Yes, ma'am, 15 to 20 minutes.
Okay, so this was the final round, which happened around like when? Do you remember the date?
It was, all this happened on the same day, ma'am.
Mid of November, right? Somewhere between.
Yes, ma'am. Around, yeah, just like around first week of November or around that time.
Okay, fine. So when did you get to know the final results, Praveeth?
Ma'am, the final results came like maybe 1 day or 2 days after this. The process was quite smooth, ma'am. So
okay, so you didn't have to wait for
we didn't have much of a delay, ma'am.
Okay, so finally, how many of you all got placed?
Ma'am, around 13 of us made it to the final shortlist, ma'am.
Oh, nice. So around 14, you told around 15, right? No, you were not sure about the number.
No, ma'am, like in terms of how many people applied for this, maybe around at least 70 to 80 would have applied.
Okay, among you all, around 13 got placed.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so super. So that was the entire interview experience with Deloitte.
Yes, ma'am. So this was the interview experience for my job role. So for us in our college, actually, we had around 10 to 12 job roles which came in this year. So, so the pattern of the test, the aptitude test, which I'm saying, the pattern of the test varied depending upon what job role people applied for.
Okay, so every event, right from the first round, it differed for different job roles.
Yeah, ma'am. For example, some of the other roles which my friends had applied for, the pattern was different. Like they didn't have the version test. And
so it was your job role which had the version test. It was not common for all the job roles.
No, ma'am, it wasn't common for all the job roles.
Okay. So it was different for all of you.
Yeah, ma'am. So the difference, if I had to point out, for example, version wasn't there. The first round itself was the aptitude round. And for this aptitude, for one of my friends and for one of the job roles which he had applied for, it had around 4 to 5 sections.
Okay.
The basic, logical, quant, and the verbal. Then the 2 sections where one was data interpretation.
Okay, so separate.
One separate section for data interpretation, and one was like, I don't know what we call the session, but it gives us a scenario. A managerial situation was given to us, and they would be giving us around 5 to 6 solutions as the options for this. So from these options, we have to choose the best option and the worst option.
Okay, you have to choose the worst one as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So it was all different sections for different job roles.
Yeah, ma'am.
You told around 13 of you got placed, right? So all the 13 were for the same job role, or?
Yes, ma'am. So this was for the same job role.
Okay.
And for the different job roles, so as I said, this was a pattern. And if I had to dig a bit deep into in terms of the logical and the quant part, it covered almost the entire, like the basic and the most important topics such as LCM, HCF, time, speed, distance, ratios, then time and work. Then it covered almost
all
the entire quant topics.
Okay. Fine.
Even the logical, same thing. But for those friends of mine, they didn't have syllogism. Instead, they had all the other topics they had except for the syllogism.
Okay. Fine. So it's all different for everyone.
Yeah, ma'am, it's
different job roles. You'll get a different pattern right from the first round itself.
Yes, ma'am, just right from the first round. And even the interview pattern for them was different. Like for a particular job role, there was just only one interview.
Okay.
And so basically just one aptitude and just one interview. That's all. Similarly, for another, the aptitude pattern was like the usual pattern of verbal, logical, and the quant, and the normal 3 to 4 rounds of interview. So it all depended upon the various job roles.
Okay, okay, nice. So yeah, do you have any tips or suggestions to your friends and juniors, Praveeth, who are trying so hard, very hard to get placed and all?
Yeah, ma'am. What I felt was like, see, from a perspective of mine, I was not quite good with the aptitude part. And considering aptitude is the very first round, it'd be too bad if we are being eliminated in that round, considering it'd
First
be
one.
regardless of whatever technical knowledge or something we have. So, so for this part, the key thing is to practice and to practice the key topics. So instead of just practicing whatever we want, I think it would be a bit more smart if we, research a bit more about the company and to
Prepare
know, like,
accordingly.
yeah, prepare accordingly.
Super.
So I
Yeah.
think,
And
yeah,
yeah, since you are a student of Quant Masters, Praveeth, would you like to share how was your experience with us?
yeah, ma'am. Yeah, definitely, ma'am. So Quant Masters, like, this was the first time like I'm properly enrolling into an aptitude or such kind of thing. So I got into this knowing that I'll just develop my aptitude part, and I was really amazed to know to get such an amazing experience in terms of the HR and all the soft skill part as well. So that was something which was really helpful because in a way, like in an interview, when we come face to face with the interview panel, one thing which really matters, even though we don't stress on it much, is the soft skill experience and the way we speak to them. So soft skill part also really helped me a lot. Plus the
Okay.
aptitude really helped me in the initial stages.
Okay, nice to know that we could help you, Praveeth. And one last question, would you recommend Quant Masters to your friends and juniors, Praveeth?
Yeah, ma'am, definitely. It was really helpful, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And also, thanks for being here, sharing all the information with us, Praveeth. Your experience will definitely help students who are trying to get placed in Deloitte.
Yeah, ma'am.
And
Really glad to help,
congratulations
ma'am.
once again. All the best for your future.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.